After being reborn, when the main wife sought to adopt a concubine-born daughter as her own, I had already distanced myself. My concubine mother scolded me for being useless, but I only breathed a sigh of relief and happily grew up until I turned 15. That year, the Dingyuan Marquis Manor was seeking a marriage match for their young master. Naturally, my father intended to choose from among his legitimate daughters. But the next day, someone from the Marquis Manor arrived at our gates, smiling broadly. Our young master has spoken. Regardless of birth status, he will only marry the sixth miss. In that instant, the young master of the Dingyuan Marquis stepped down from his carriage, reached into the crowd, and pulled me out. 2. I've waited a long time. No matter how many years I spent hiding, I still couldn't escape him. I was reborn, just in time to return to the moment the main wife was selecting a concubine-born girl to adopt. This time, I stayed far, far away. In my previous life, I had done everything I could to win her favor, just for the chance at a better future. Eventually, she adopted me as her goddaughter, and I became a legitimate daughter of the Gu family in name. From that day on, I lived in silk and splendor, with servants waiting at every step. But during the banquet celebrating my father's promotion, the main wife, eager to solidify her standing, plotted to drug both me and Tai Yuyan, the young master of the Dingyuan Marquis, and sent him into my room. After one entangled night, I became the target of public scorn. Shamed and broken, I tried to end my life, but Tai Yuyan stopped me. He knelt before my parents and swore, with life and death as witness, that he would marry me and treat me well for the rest of his days. 3 months later, we were wed. I thought peace would follow, but that was when my true suffering began. Barely after the wedding, Tai Yuyan grew cold and distant. He soon indulged in brothels and entertainment houses, vanishing for weeks on end. The servants took their cues from him. Seeing I held no favor, they grew bolder by the day, using every excuse to disrespect me. His mother blamed me for failing to win his heart and tormented me in every way she could. I didn't understand what I had done wrong, why I made him unhappy. So I took on the household burdens, dutifully cared for my in-laws, hoping my efforts would earn his affection. But every time I approached, he only looked at me with disdain. "You set the trap," he would say. "You forced me to marry you. Whatever suffering you face now, you deserve it." At the time, I believed he resented me for ruining his reputation. It wasn't until the Lantern Festival, a year later, that I saw him standing in the crowd with Shinchinka, the orphan girl who had been staying temporarily in the Tom Manor. They laughed together, like soulmates destined by heaven. And in that moment, I finally understood. It was her he truly loved. I was nothing more than the obstacle that ruined their fate. That night, I decided to ask for a divorce. When I told him, he barely glanced at me. I sighed. "Tai Yuyan, I know you only married me because my reputation had been ruined. You had no choice but to shoulder the blame. And I know the one you truly love is Shinchinka. Let's part ways. From now on, we'll live separate lives in peace." I thought he would agree. Instead, he tore the divorce paper in front of me. "Who want to? You begged me to marry you. Now you want a divorce. Dream on. No divorce." And a few years later, I died, bitter and broken in the Marquis Manor. Now that I've been reborn, I'll never walk that path again. So when the main wife wanted to choose a concubine-born daughter to adopt, I hid my talents, pretended to be good for nothing. I wasn't chosen. My concubine mother was furious, called me hopeless, scolded me for being unambitious. But I knew she only wanted the best for me. She had been born to a merchant family, low status and humble origins, so I never held much standing in the Gu household. Always feeling guilty for my station, she raised me with strict discipline, hoping I'd grow strong enough to rise above our place. But for me, nothing mattered more than a peaceful heart and a carefree smile. I tugged on her hand and said, "Mother, what does being a legitimate daughter matter? As long as I can stay with you, even being a concubine-born girl is fine." She couldn't and oppose, T-bear to let me go. Hearing my words, she gently pinched my nose and sighed. Then let fate decide. So I grew up without worry, happy and free until age 15. But fate had other plans. The Dingyuan Marquis Manor came to our gates, shattering all the plans I had carefully arranged. In early March, the Marquis himself came to propose on behalf of his son, Tai Yuyan. The Ta family was powerful. He was the emperor's own father-in-law. My father, of course, looked to his legitimate daughters, and immediately nominated my eldest sister. But the very next day, the Ta family's steward arrived, eyes gleaming. Our young master says it doesn't matter if she's legitimate or concubine-born. He will only marry the sixth miss. The sixth miss was me. My heart dropped. I had changed everything, altered the fate of my past life. So why was I still being chosen? Panicked, I shrank back and tried to disappear into the crowd. But moments later, Taiyin stepped out of his carriage, reached into the throng, and pulled me out. "Two," he said with a soft smile, "I've been waiting for you." That smile stunned me. Memories of that suffocating nightmare surged up like a flood. My father's voice broke through. "Want to? Why are you being so rude? Greet Taiyin at once." Snapped out of my daze. I was about to bow when Taiyin raised a hand to stop me. "There's no need for such formality," he said, still smiling. "You must be frightened by what I said." I didn't know why, but hearing him call me two made me feel something strange. I furrowed my brows, avoided his eyes. Doubt filled my heart. I was just a lowly concubine-born daughter. Why was he so determined to marry me? My concubine mother gently pinched my hand. "Aren't you going to thank Taiyin?" I turned down and saw her smiling at me. Perhaps she truly felt happy on my behalf. For a concubine-born girl like me, marrying into the Marquis manor was a fortune many couldn't dream of across lifetimes. But that so-called fortune, I wanted no part of it. Taiyin looked at me with deep affection. "Two, will you marry me?" Even the matchmaker chimed in cheerfully. Young Master Ta is truly devoted to 6th Mississippi. He urged me out early this morning just to come here. 6th Miss, don't make things difficult for him. The memory of my death in the previous life, silent, full of sorrow, flashed vividly in my mind. I immediately stepped back. "Thank you, young Master Ta, for your kindness, but I have no wish to marry at the moment." Everyone was stunned. The one most visibly affected was Taiyin. He frowned. "Why not?" I quickly made up a reason. "I am still young. I wish to stay by my parents' side for a few more years to fulfill my filial duty. I hope you'll understand." Though I had gently rejected him, Taiyin did not seem angry. Instead, his voice grew even softer, and his tone held a trace of indulgence. "I see. Well, you needn't worry about that. After we're married, if you wish to visit them, you may do so whenever you like." I glanced at him, and a strange feeling stirred in my heart. Something about this version of Taiyin felt different from the man I once knew. But he had spoken so gently, any further refusal would seem ungrateful. The Ta family was not someone we could afford to offend. My father stepped forward with a stern voice. "Want to? Stop being unreasonable. Today, I'll make the decision. You'll marry young Master Ta. Don't cause trouble." "Father," I interrupted firmly, "have you forgotten? Years ago, I once saved the Empress while she was ambushed during a journey. In gratitude, Her Majesty granted me a special privilege, the right to decide my own marriage. In my previous life, I had relied on my memories to rescue her. She had wanted to bestow great rewards, and I had taken the chance to ask for this freedom, hoping that one day, I could choose someone I truly loved. I never thought it would become my shield today. My father could no longer force me. But the Ta family couldn't be offended either. He gave a strained smile. "Our family still has several daughters. Let me summon them, so young Master Ta may choose again." Ta Yuyan stared at me in silence, his gaze unreadable and dark. Just as I was bracing for him to press the matter, he unexpectedly let out a soft chuckle, like a sigh. I was too impatient. I came to propose without even asking the sixth Miss's opinion. That was rude of me. He glanced at me, then said, "I ought to apologize. If you would join me for a stroll tomorrow, whatever you see and like, I'll gift it to you as an apology." He had said so much, I could no longer decline. I nodded slightly. Perhaps because I saw Taeyin during the day, I dreamed of my past life that night. In truth, there had been sweetness early in our marriage. But once I began managing the household, I discovered that the Marquis estate had been running at a deficit for years. Expenses outpaced income. To keep the household afloat, I had no choice but to take over my concubine mother's business affairs and cooperate with my cousin, Bai. The money flowed in steadily. I thought he would be pleased. But instead, I was rebuked, accused of being an improper woman, stepping outside and losing the family's dignity. From then on, he became colder and more distant. It wasn't until I lay on my deathbed that I learned the truth. Shinshinka had been slandering me behind my back all along, claiming that I had an affair with Bai, and Tai Yuyan believed her. Want to? Are you alright? My concubine mother's voice broke through my dream as she shook me awake. I opened my eyes to her worried face, and tears spilled down my cheeks. In my past life, when she learned I was suffering, she knelt outside the Marquis Manor begging Tai Yuyan for a divorce, just to bring me home. But he gave her only a cold glance before turning away. She knelt under the snow all night, fell ill, and never recovered. Not long after I passed, she too died from sorrow. I threw my arms around her, silently vowing, this time, I will never let that tragedy happen again. I thought I had escaped Tai Yuyan in this life, but I still had to accompany him to stroll the city. Suppressing my discomfort, I followed, hoping to pick something quickly and leave. Suddenly, he tilted his head toward me, his voice tinged with concern. After I left yesterday, did official Gu give you a hard time? I gave a small laugh. Of course he did. All because of him, I had been scolded thoroughly. Luckily, though my father feared authority, he still carried out appearances and didn't pressure me further. How ironic. When I was dying in my past life, Tai Yuyan never spared me a glance. But now that I didn't care, he suddenly became warm and attentive. How repulsive. I replied coldly, what happens in my family is none of your concern. His expression faltered. Then he gave a helpless smile. Must you be so distant? I only wanted to look out for you. I didn't answer. My lips curled faintly. Seeing my silence, he placed his hand on my shoulder and gently guided me into the jewelry shop. I frowned. He quickly let go and said calmly, if I didn't, you'd walk right past. This is the best shop in the capital. Take a look, you might find something you like. As soon as he entered, all eyes inside turned to him. Before long, noble daughters gathered, coming forward one after another to greet him. I became the target of curious, scrutinizing stares. Despite all the attention, Tai Yuyan paid no one else any mind. He stood quietly beside me, patiently helping me choose jewelry. Looking at the man so close by, I realized this wasn't the same Tai Yuyan I remembered, not the naive young man from the past, nor the cold, ruthless husband who tormented me for years. My heart thumped, and a strange thought flickered in my mind. Tai Yuyan, I called softly, about to ask what he truly felt. Yuyan. A gentle voice rang out, right at the same moment. Tai Yuyan looked at me, then turned toward the voice. I turned too. Standing at the entrance was Shunchinka. Yuyan, why didn't you invite me to shop for jewelry with you? Her eyes fell on me with undisguised hostility. She looked me up and down. So you're the sixth miss of the Gu family. The one Yuyan came to propose to yesterday. Though we were once acquaintances, her gaze held open animosity, so very different from how she was in the past. In my past life, after marrying into the Ta family, Shunchinka would often cling to my arm, affectionately calling me sister. She guided me through introductions across the Ta household, chatted and laughed with me like a dear friend. Wherever I went, whatever I did, I never hid anything from her. Even the rift between Tai Yuyan and me, I once confided in her, thinking she would understand. But on my deathbed, her eyes were filled with resentment. She blamed me for stealing Yuyan from her, for ruining their destined love. It was only then I realized, all those years of bitterness and misunderstanding, she had been behind them all, whispering poison, sowing discord. Be polite, Chinka, Tai Yuyan said softly. This is sixth miss of the Gu family, Gu want to. Though his words sounded like mild scolding, his eyes were filled with unbearable tenderness. It was sickening. I couldn't bear to look at either of them a moment longer. I casually pointed to a jade bracelet on display. Young Master Ta, I'll take that one. Please have it wrapped and delivered to the Gu residence. No need to trouble yourselves any longer. I turned to leave, but Shunchinka's voice rang out, soft and frail. Sixth miss, I like that bracelet too. Would you be willing to let me have it? Her eyes brimmed with tears, her pitiful expression enough to make anyone's heart ache. As expected, the moment Tai Yuyan looked at her, his expression changed. Just pick another. This shop has plenty of fine pieces. Why insist on one bracelet? How laughable. I didn't even want to come here in the first place. Now I was made to look like I was fighting over a bracelet. In my past life, I yielded to everything. But now he still thought I was soft clay to mold as he pleased. I no longer played Aang. Raising my head, I said coolly, if young Master Ta hadn't come to propose uninvited, and then insisted on apologizing, I wouldn't be out on this stroll today. And now, I'm accused of snatching a bracelet. How ridiculous. The noble ladies around us all pricked up their ears, eager for gossip. Tai Yuyan hadn't expected me to speak so bluntly in public. His expression darkened. Even if you and Apos re-angry with me, you shouldn't speak like this in front of others. I gave a cold laugh. Was he worried out his reputation? Or that Shinchinka might misunderstand? Sure enough, Shinchinka's tear-filled eyes flickered between the two of us. Sixth miss. I cut her off without hesitation. If you like it, take it. Consider this my thanks for today's outing. In the future, I hope young Master Ta will think before he acts. My decisiveness earned murmurs of praise from the onlookers. Tai Yuyan opened his mouth as if to say something, but I had already taken a few steps back, eager to escape this pitiful farce. Just then, a clear male voice rang out. Something my cousin has her eyes on. How could someone else take it? The voice was low and crisp, laced with cold amusement. The young man's features were sharp and handsome, his lips curled in a mischievous smile. He even winked at me. I couldn't and Apos help but press my lips together in a small smile. It was Bai Yi, my maternal cousin. He had always treated me well. He traveled often, and each time he returned, he brought back rare treasures from across the land to gift me. What's more, he was a legend in the business world. In just a few years, he'd built the Bai family into an elite merchant house with influence across the empire. In my past life, my closeness with Bai Yi became the very excuse Tai Yuyan used to suspect an illicit affair between us. Now, every gaze in the store turned our way. Even Tai Yuyan was stunned. His face darkened, his eyes laced with hostility. What are you doing here, Bai Yi? He asked coldly. Bai Yi gave him a casual glance. Why shouldn't I be? If young Master Ta can be here, why not me? He smiled. Besides, this store happens to belong to my family. Then he turned inside and called loudly, Shopkeeper, the jade bracelet that wanted just picked out. Wrap up 100 of them and deliver them to the Gu residence. Consider it my gift to Aunt. I looked up at the two across from me. One had eyes red with tears, on the verge of sobbing. The other's face had turned stormy, as if ready to devour someone whole. I couldn't hold back. I gave a small chuckle. Eventually, Shinchinka wiped her eyes and forced herself to pick a few pieces of jewelry, her pride thoroughly bruised. She pulled on Tai Yuyan's sleeve, urging him to leave. He gave a slight nod, then turned toward me. Want to, let's go. I brought you out. I should escort you home. I had no interest in being around either of them a moment longer. Young Master Ta and Miss Shin may go ahead, I said coldly. The Gu residence and the Ta residence aren't on the same path. I'll return on my own. Bai Yi stepped beside me and added bluntly, Young Master Ta, feel free to leave. I'll personally escort my cousin home. Seeing that I had no intention of relenting, Tai Yuyan's expression tightened. But in public, he couldn't force me. His face darkened as he turned and left. Once the two of them had walked off, Bai Yi leaned in and whispered, I heard Tai Yuyan came to propose yesterday. I nodded slightly. Bai Yi fell silent for a moment. From what I saw today, his relationship with that young lady is far from simple. You'd best consider carefully. Marrying into that mess would only bring suffering. See, even outsiders could see more clearly than I did in my past life. I understand, cousin, I replied. I turned him down yesterday. Seeing that I held no fondness for Tai Yuyan, Bai Yi didn't press further. Instead, he turned to the shopkeeper to settle the bill. Curious, I stepped over to watch. Bai Yi glanced sideways and smirked. What? You want to learn how to do business too? I lifted my head and nodded slightly. In my past life, after becoming the adopted daughter of the main wife, my life did improve. Silks and rouge were never in short supply. The main wife was generous. She hired instructors to teach me embroidery, music, poetry, and dance. It was tiring, even dull, but I never complained. I knew she was preparing me to marry well, to elevate the family and Apos' standing. She planted peaches, I returned with plums. I never resented her. That was the fate of a legitimate daughter. But later, when I was trapped behind closed doors, crying for help that never came, I realized. All those talents were meant to please men. If I truly wanted a place in this world, I needed the ability to stand on my own. My mother had merchant roots, but little education. She couldn't help me much. In my past life, when I inherited her business, it was Bai Yi who taught me everything. I gained much under his guidance. So why not, in this life, formally take him as my mentor? With that thought, I looked at him and said seriously, "Cousin, would you be willing to teach me business?" Bai Yi was briefly stunned, then broke into a satisfied laugh. "It's rare for you to have such ambition. All right then, from this day forward, I'll accept you as my disciple." From then on, I studied business under Bai Yi, and even persuaded my concubine mother to let me manage 2 of her shops as training. Tai Yuyin came looking for me several times, but I always found an excuse to refuse him. One day, while I was reviewing the ledgers in one of the shops, Shin Chinka suddenly arrived. She entered gracefully and gave a formal bow. "I haven't yet thanked you, 6th Miss." I raised an eyebrow. "Thank me? For what?" Without hesitation, she replied, "When Yu Yin came to propose, he was too presumptuous and likely offended you. But I know he wasn't serious, just momentary interest. Please don't take it to heart." She smiled demurely. "He and I grew up together. Now that I'm staying in the Ta household, it was only right that I came to apologize on his behalf." Yu Yin, how many times had I heard her call him that in my past life? It made my skin crawl. So that's why she came today, not to apologize, but to provoke. "You and Appos, re too kind, Miss Shun. I'm just a lowly concubine-born girl. How could I be worthy of young Master Ta? I've already declined him." Her smile didn't falter. Tilting her head, she asked softly, "But Yu Yin has always been proud. For him to propose in person, surely you must have something that moved him. May I ask, what are your thoughts now?" So this delicate little girl who appeared as fragile as a willow in the wind, now carried herself like the mistress of the Ta household. I wondered, did Tai Yin know her true face? I curved my lips into a slight smirk. Shin Chinka frowned. "What's so funny, 6th Miss?" I had no intention to say more, but since she had come to stir trouble at my doorstep, I no longer saw the need to be polite. "Nothing at all," I said calmly. "I have no special talents, no great beauty, just a concubine-born girl, with no virtue to speak of. I simply find it admirable that you came here in person to apologize, acting on behalf of both young Master Ta and his family. You've worked so hard." Her expression twisted. "You," but with no one else around, she could only grit her teeth and storm off, fuming. A few days later was the birthday banquet of the eldest princess. I received an invitation. Hoping to build connections with other noble ladies, I rose early to prepare and dress with care. As I stepped outside, I saw Tai Yin waiting beside a carriage. The moment he saw me, he jumped down and called, "Want to?" Headed to the princess's banquet. "Why not come with me?" I shook my head and declined without hesitation. In my previous life, it was our closeness that led him to believe I truly loved him and wanted no other. It eventually became one of the so-called proofs that I had drugged him. I once tried to explain that it was all the main wife's doing, but he had grabbed me by the throat and snarled, "You were always hanging around me. Everyone knew you liked me. You were afraid I'd marry someone else, so you used poison to force the marriage, then didn't even dare to admit it. In this life, I vowed I would stay far away from him." Seeing me refuse, Tai Yin still tried to tempt me. "I brought sweets from Chishuanzhai. Isn't the sticky rice cake from there your favorite?" That treat, I and Appos, he only developed a taste for it after marrying into the Ta family in my previous life. He looked at me carefully, hoping to see a reaction. I responded coldly, "No, thank you. I'm going with my cousin, Bai Yi." His expression changed instantly. "Why him? Do you like him? You always." I didn't even bother answering. I glanced at him, then looked away. His face flushed with anger, and just as he opened his mouth again, a sweet voice called from behind. "Yu Yin." Shin Chinka arrived, her tone full of grievance. "Why didn't you wait for me?" She saw me standing nearby, and her eyes immediately reddened. "Is it because of 6th Miss? Is that why you didn't wait for me?" "Yu Yin, I've always accompanied you to these banquets. But now that 6th Miss is here, everything's changed." Tai Yin's tone grew weary. "This has nothing to do with anyone else, Chinka. I just thought you were still getting ready, so I left first." Her face softened slightly at that, and she coquettishly asked to ride with him. He didn't reply. His gaze remained fixed on me. I had no interest in being part of their drama. Fortunately, Bai Yi arrived just then, waving at me from a short distance. Without sparing Tai Yin another glance, I stepped into the carriage beside my cousin. When we arrived at the banquet, Tai Yin and Shin Chinka had just arrived as well. She looked pale and unwell, on the verge of vomiting. Well, with how fast their carriage sped, it was no wonder. The moment he saw me disembark, Taiyin stepped forward. Why did you ride with Bai? I frowned at him, unapologetic. Bai is my cousin. If I don't ride with him, should I ride with someone who has nothing to do with me? Young Master Ta, please know your place. His mouth snapped shut. He stared at me for a long while before finally muttering, Want to? Why have you changed so much? Could it be that you also? I looked at him and smiled calmly. Also what? He parted his lips, but didn't finish his sentence. Instead, it was Shun Chinka who glared at me, her eyes rimmed with red. Tai Yuyan said nothing more, but he followed closely by my side, speaking softly. They're serving plum wine at today's banquet. It's your favorite. Have a little more later. I showed no emotion, but inside, a storm was rising. Plum wine. That was something I only came to like in my past life. And only Tai Yuyan knew it. Before, I had only suspected. But now I was sure, Tai Yuyan had been reborn too. I entered the banquet hall in silence. The moment I stepped in, my elder sister called me over. In my past life, we were constantly at odds, and our relationship had turned cold. But in this life, I had withdrawn from the fight for legitimate daughter status, and perhaps out of guilt, she treated me with unexpected warmth. It was even she who helped me obtain the invitation to the princess's banquet today. I took my seat beside her. Across from us sat Tai Yuyan and Shinshinka. My sister had heard bits and pieces about their situation. The moment she saw the two of them, she rolled her eyes in contempt. The other young ladies were too engrossed in their own conversations to notice the strange tension at our table. Then, unexpectedly, my sister spoke up with a casual smile. I heard from father that Miss Shun and young Master Ta both grew up in Wuzhou. At her words, Tai Yuyan's expression immediately stiffened. Shun Chinka took a graceful sip of tea, her gaze sweeping past me before she replied softly, That's right. Yuyan and I were childhood friends. We grew up together. There was even a marriage agreement between us back then. We shared the same tutor for our first lessons. Later, when his father was promoted, his family moved to the capital, while mine went to the northwest. That's when we gradually lost contact. But heaven is kind, and fate has brought us together again. A destined bond, reunited across distance. I let out a light laugh. Truly a predestined match. Even the old man under the moon wouldn't have the heart to sever that red thread. To last this long, what a rare fate indeed. The more I said, the darker Tai Yuyan's eyes became as he looked at me. My sister blinked, then added with mock surprise, In that case, why didn't young Master Ta say so earlier? Coming to our residence to propose might have ruined such a wonderful match. Best not to act so rashly next time. I smiled and followed her lead. Indeed, young Master Ta, I have no interest in you, nor any intention of getting between a couple. I just wonder, when will your wedding be held, so I can prepare an appropriate gift. A heavy silence followed. After a long pause, Tai Yuyan finally looked up and said, Is my marriage such a concern to you, sixth Miss Gu? I replied with perfect calm, We've only met a few times, but I sincerely wish you a blessed union. Only a few times, that landed like a blade. Tai Yuyan's fingers clenched tightly around his teacup, the knuckles whitening. After a moment, he let out a bitter chuckle, then stood up and left the banquet. I sipped my tea leisurely, my expression unbothered. My sister leaned in and whispered, That girl Shun is glaring daggers at you. Be careful and stay away from her. I patted her hand reassuringly. Don't worry. But her concern proved valid sooner than expected. Midway through the banquet, I stepped out to wash my hands. As I returned, I found Shinchinka waiting alone by the lake. The moment she saw me, she waved her attendants away and strode toward me. Sensing danger, I turned to leave, but she blocked my path. Guwantu, what are you doing at the princess's banquet? Her tone was as if this place belonged to her family. I arched a brow and smiled faintly. Drinking wine. Is that a crime? Don't think I don't know your intentions. You came just to see Yuyan. Let me tell you, so long as I'm here, don't even dream of getting close to him. I couldn't help laughing at such absurdity. Miss Shun, instead of guarding me, perhaps you should watch the maids around young Master Ta. They're all young and pretty. Unexpectedly, she stepped closer, her eyes locked on my face, hands trembling as she gripped her skirt. If I hadn't seen the portrait Yuyan keeps hidden in his study, she said coldly, I would have been fooled by you. But in this life, don't even think about getting near him. I want to see, if I ruin your face, will he still want you? With that, she pulled the golden hairpin from her bun and lunged at me. I hadn't expected that delicate exterior to hide such madness. On instinct, I raised my arm to block and ran toward the nearby rock garden. Shinchinka gave chase, hairpin still in hand. But in her frenzy, she didn't see the rock in her path and tripped. A sharp voice rang out behind us. "What are you two doing?" And in that instant, she turned the hairpin on herself, slashing a line across her neck. Blood flowed down her pale skin as she collapsed with a soft cry. "Yin, help me. It hurts. Will it leave a scar?" I turned back and saw Tai Yin rushing toward us. When he saw the blood, his face paled in horror. "Someone, fetch a physician." Shinchinka threw herself into his arms, sobbing. "Yin, it hurts." He gently consoled her, then turned to me, eyes filled with frost. "Gu want to. If you have grievances, bring them to me." "Why hurt, Chinka? If you can't give a proper explanation, don't even think about leaving the princess's estate." That look, that expression, the same as before. In my past life, whenever Shinchinka and I argued, he would look at me just like that, without even asking for the truth. Explanation. He wanted one now. I shrugged. "Young Master Ta, please be reasonable. I went to wash my hands. Who would have thought I'd encounter Miss Shin here?" Shinchinka pointed at me, weeping. "She's lying. She tried to kill me." Tai Yin's jaw clenched. "Want to apologize to Chinka now?" I laughed outright. "You believe anything she says?" "I did nothing. What am I apologizing for?" His voice was ice. "The truth is obvious. Are you still going to deny it?" That gaze again. The one that never once gave me the benefit of the doubt. In my past life, no matter what happened, he never listened. "Fine. You humiliated me before, I endured it. But in this life, dream on." I lifted my chin and looked past them. "If you don't believe me," I said coolly, "why not ask everyone else who was nearby and saw what really happened?" At that, Shinchinka's face froze. In our past life, I had dealt with her long enough to know her tricks well. Before heading out, I had deliberately taken that path, knowing a few noble ladies were resting by the rock pavilion nearby. I lured her out on purpose. And these two fools, one too busy fabricating lies, the other too busy rushing to her defense, never once looked behind them. I turned to one of them. "Miss Lin," I said, addressing the daughter of the Minister of Rights, a regular customer at my shop, "did you see clearly?" She smiled. "Of course I did. Miss Shun has quite the temper, threatening to disfigure someone like that." The other young ladies chimed in. I didn't expect such cruelty from a noble woman. And that young Master Ta, handsome, but clearly brainless. Their faces turned red, then pale, then red again. A colorful display. I smiled sweetly at Shinchinka. "So, Miss Shun, are you still claiming I tried to harm you?" She bit her lip and looked to Tai Yuyen, only to see his face had gone completely cold. Flustered, she stammered, "Yuyen, I lost too much blood earlier. I panicked, so I said she tried to kill me." Panicked? What kind of excuse was that? The other girls sneered. "If you were scared, you should have called for help, not fabricated a story. To be that vicious, can't compare." It didn't take long before word of the incident reached the ears of the eldest princess. The eldest princess had always been known for her upright character and intolerance for deceit. When she heard what had happened, she immediately ordered Shinchinka to be expelled from the estate. Shinchinka's face turned as pale as paper. Trembling, she looked to Tai Yuyen for help, but he didn't even glance her way. From that moment, Shinchinka's reputation was completely ruined. After the banquet, I was preparing to leave when I found Tai Yuyen waiting beside a carriage. He stepped forward carefully. "Too," he said gently, "I'm sorry. I wrongly accused you. But please, don't blame me either. I thought you hated Chinka, so when I saw what happened, I assumed. He suddenly stopped, realizing too late what he had said. I let out a cold laugh and asked, "Assumed what, exactly?" "Young Master Ta, I've only met Miss Shin twice. What reason would I have to hate her?" Tai Yuyen stared at me in silence. The more he tried to hide the truth, the more I wanted to expose it. "Because you know, don't you? You know that I, like you, have been reborn. You assumed I sought revenge because you remember how Shun Chinka slandered and turned you against me in our previous life. That's why you thought I was trying to disfigure her, isn't it?" I thought that by now, he would at least be honest. But Tai Yuyen's lips quivered, and he still denied it. "I don't know what you're talking about. Are you sure you're not just confused from the scare earlier?" I let out a furious laugh. "Tai Yuyen, you're still the same. Even after living another life, you're still the same weak, Cowardly man. You can't face your past mistakes, and you don't even have the courage to admit you've come back from the dead. My words struck him hard. His eyes trembled, but then he turned and fled. I watched him go and laughed coldly. Pathetic. After returning home, I took full control of my concubine mother's businesses and stayed busy with the accounts and logistics. Later, I followed Bai Yi south to Jiangnan to arrange a major purchase of goods. As soon as I returned to the Gu residence, I found Tai Yin waiting at the gate. I walked past him without a glance. Behind me, he called out, "Want to? Are you still avoiding me? I was blind in the past life, but now I've realized my mistakes. I want to start over with you, but you won't forgive me. You still resent me." I turned to look at him and asked calmly, "Why would I resent you? Young Master Ta, are you possessed? One moment you think I hate Shinchinka, the next you say I resent you. Which is it?" He stared at me for a long time before letting out a bitter laugh. "You really do still hate me. Want to? Can't we leave the past behind and start over?" I laughed as I see. "So, you finally admit it." His eyes reddened. His voice choked. "If heaven gave me a second chance at life, then all I wish for is to start anew with you." I had never met anyone more shameless. Without another word, I slapped him. "Tai Yuyan, the one who died full of resentment in our past life wasn't you. The one who lost everything wasn't you. You can pretend the past never happened and ask to start over. But why should I? Why should I pretend nothing happened, just because you want to feel better? Dream on." He clearly hadn't expected me to be so merciless. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he reached out to grab my hand. I turned and walked away without looking back. Months passed. My father was promoted, and the Gu residence hosted a grand banquet with nobles and scholars from all across the capital. The day before the banquet, the main wife summoned me, gifting me fine clothes and jewelry, her eyes full of unspoken intent. Everyone in the Gu household knew what had happened between Taiyin and me. I knew exactly what she was plotting. She wanted to repeat the same trick, to deliver me to Taiyin's bed. I smiled sweetly and accepted her expensive gifts. But this time, her plan was bound to fail. The banquet arrived. The guests filled the halls in a lively, festive atmosphere. Then came the famous hibiscus broth, a signature dish of the Gu family, known for its delicate flavor and painstaking preparation. Under the meaningful gaze of the main wife, I calmly finished a bowl. What she didn't know was that the drugged soup had already been switched. The one who drank it wasn't me, it was Shinchinka. I had even forged Tai Yin's handwriting to send her a private invitation to my room. Since the failed injury incident, Tai Yin had been cold to her. With a chance at privacy, how could she resist? After eating, I claimed to feel unwell and excused myself to rest. The main wife quickly approved. I slipped away and went to my sister's room instead. Sure enough, less than an hour later, screams erupted from the corridor. My sister and I rushed over, only to find Tai Yin and Shinchinka, both hastily dressed, with lingering marks on their skin. The bed was in disarray. The scene said it all. The Ta family marquis, standing in the crowd of guests, was livid. He slapped Tai Yin across the face. "What disgraceful behavior! You've brought shame on our house." Shinchinka wept beneath the sheets. The room descended into chaos. From across the crowd, Tai Yin saw me and tried to come over, but Shinchinka leapt out of bed, still barefoot, and clung to him. "Yin, don't leave me. If you go, I won't survive." Ashamed and furious, the Marquis ordered both of them to be dragged back to the Ta residence. Shinchinka's reputation was now in ruins. There was no hope of marriage elsewhere. So the Marquis decided to have her wed Tai Yin himself, choosing an auspicious date for the ceremony. The next day, I stepped out of the Gu residence and once again found Tai Yin waiting. He rushed over. "About yesterday. I don't know how it happened. I must have been drugged." I laughed. "Really? Drugged? Were you?" Tai Yin looked stricken. "If not for that, why else would I?" I mocked him with a sneer. "Still acting, I see. In our past life, there was no drug. You walked into my room and ruined my reputation by choice. You're despicable. In my previous life, I had believed he was forced. It wasn't until I lay dying that he finally admitted the truth. Want to?" He had whispered, "I'm sorry. I loved you from the moment we met. I couldn't hold back. I was wrong to treat you so coldly, but you weren't innocent either. Even after we married, you still met with Bai Yi. What was I supposed to think? I don't want to argue about the past anymore. Just don't die. Please." Now, as I spoke those words aloud, his face turned deathly pale. Want to? I was wrong in the past. He lowered his voice, hoarse with emotion. I truly know my mistakes now. Please forgive me. He reached out, wanting to grab my hand, but I stepped aside like I was avoiding filth. As I turned to leave, his voice echoed behind me, stubborn and desperate. Want to? I won't marry Shinchinka. Wait for me. I didn't look back. I simply walked away. They said that day, Taiyin lost control and made a scene right outside the Gu residence gates, shouting that everything had been a scheme orchestrated by the main wife. The chaos forced my father to investigate, and sure enough, he uncovered evidence of suspicious actions. To explain things both to the guests and the Ta family, my father had the main wife placed under house arrest and exiled to a countryside estate. With the household needing someone to manage it, he promoted my concubine mother to the status of secondary wife and entrusted her with the household keys. Not long after, the former main wife fell seriously ill and passed away. My father then officially named my mother as his primary wife. Later, I traveled the realm with my cousin Bai, visiting provinces far and wide. By the time I returned to the capital, 2 years had passed. By then, my businesses had flourished manyfold. Though not yet a royal merchant, I had built a strong foothold in the capital under the Yunseng brand. I met Taiyin again at the birthday banquet of the Minister of Rights. I was invited as the legitimate daughter of the Gu family and the head of the Yunseng trading brand. Over the years, I had heard bits and pieces about him. In the end, he did marry Shinchinka, but he treated her with no affection. The day after their wedding, he brought in multiple concubines. In front of guests, he would curse her as a disgrace. Within the household, the servants tormented her, sometimes forcing her to kneel for hours, sometimes lashing her with wrought tin canes. Taiyin didn't care whether she lived or died, but he wasn't faring much better himself. Because of the scandal he brought to the capital, marrying a concubine-born girl who had lost her virtue, he became a laughingstock. The Marquis distanced himself, and Taiyin gradually became invisible within his own household. After the banquet, he followed me out and stopped me. He stood there awkwardly, silent for a long time before finally saying, "Want to? I'm sorry." I glanced at him and replied coolly, "If you truly feel sorry, then I ask only one thing, never appear in front of me again." He froze. His eyes reddened. "Do you really hate me that much?" I laughed. After all he had done to me in our past life, should I not hate him? 2 years had passed, and he was still the same selfish man. I didn't bother with more words. I slapped him across the face. "Yes, I do hate you. Now get lost." Then I turned and climbed into my carriage without looking back. From that day on, Taiyin tried everything to see me again, even going so far as to help me eliminate a ruthless business rival. One day, as I stepped out of my shop, I saw him standing in the shade beneath a tree. He hurried toward me. Wantu, the Li family, who's been opposing your business for so long, was finally arrested for breaking the law. I looked at him indifferently. All I felt was disgust. Such a beautiful day, and I had to run into something that made my stomach turn. Well, I raised an eyebrow, impatient. "Are you here to demand gratitude?" "Young Master Ta, I've never asked you for anything." Taiyin's face collapsed. He stammered. "No, I'm not asking for anything. I only wanted to help you. That's all. I want you to know, everything I've done, I did willingly." I laughed in disdain. "Willingly, are you?" He nodded eagerly. "Yes. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. No hesitation." Then, I said softly, "Please disappear from my life. Forever. Can you do that, young Master Ta? Your presence only reminds me of the past. It makes me despise you more." I turned and walked away. A few steps later, I heard a dull thud behind me. When I looked back, Taiyin had collapsed unconscious to the ground. I didn't feel sad, only annoyed that he might die in front of my shop and bring me more trouble. From that day onward, Taiyin vanished from my world. Later, I heard he became obsessed, his behavior erratic, isolating himself with Taoist priests, desperately seeking secret techniques of reincarnation. In a fit of madness, he set fire to his bedroom and perished in the flames. Years later, during the wedding of the Dingyuan heir, I crossed paths with Shinchinka. She was emaciated, her complexion lifeless, clothed in rags. They said after Taiyin's death, her life had become even more miserable. The Ta matron blamed her for everything. that had she not schemed with drugs, her son would never have married her, nor died so tragically. She was cursed daily, and made to perform every servant's task, even cleaning chamber pots. We passed each other beneath the corridor's eaves. Neither of us spoke. Later that winter, Shunchinka swallowed gold and took her own life. After she died, the Ta family refused to admit her into their ancestral hall. She left behind a single letter for me. It contained just one line. If I could live again, I would still choose the same path, because that was the best choice I ever made. I silently burned the letter. To me, that story had ended long ago. In the years that followed, my business expanded across the empire, opening branches everywhere. This life, I would rely on no one else. I would write my own ending. Who says, there can't be a better choice? The end.